And today, for the first time in the Seattle Times 110-year history, they're publishing an editorial on this issue right on the front page. This has never happened before, on the front page. And 7 other newspapers around Washington are doing the same thing. A Superior Court judge has already ruled that the legislature is not exempt from the Public Records Act, and the legislature is appealing to the state Supreme Court.
So we're zeroing in on this morning because King 5 investigator Chris Ingalls is here. This is really just ridiculous, Chris, that they're doing this. I mean, really, it's just ridiculous. It makes you wonder, what are they trying to hide?
Yeah, I'm so thankful to have a moment to talk to you guys about it because it is important. And people think about the Public Records Act as relating to journalists. I mean, I've got a big stack of, this is just one of my case files. It's all the result of public records requests, which we can talk about more if you want to, what this one is. But remember, this is a tool of the common citizen also. Anybody out there can make a request of their government to get information about what's happening, the conduct of their government. The government doesn't have to talk to you. Your lawmaker doesn't have to answer your questions. But by law, they do have to provide records. And that's the thing. I think we want awareness out there that this is a tool that any citizen can use to get information about their government, and the government has to respond by law.
And the fact that you use this, and this is just one case, one story that you have been working on, so many stories you would not have been able to do if it weren't for that public.
Can I tell you what this is exactly? So for 2 years now, I've been doing stories on drug and alcohol treatment clinics where there's some things going on that are illegal. Well, when we started looking at that, we started looking at whether the government watchdog that's supposed to be watching these clinics is doing its job. These records, and I'm just showing you some of them I've printed out. I've got probably 7,000 pages of records from public records requests, told us the government is not doing that job. And then after we put those stories on the air, 4 employees from that same agency came forward. They went on our air and said, you know what, you're right. We wrote these records and we can tell you this agency is not doing its job. So this is a perfect example of how records told us what was really going on behind the scenes.
Right. And that's just a, what, 1/10% of the records you've probably had in your career with your body of work.
Oh yeah, Susanna Frame and I are looking at records each and every day back there.
So here is the argument that lawmakers are putting forward, that they have to hire an additional person to create these records, pull them, redact them, go through. I mean, it's a tedious process. Yeah. And you and I, we all know there are some people that abuse it, right? They put in records requests every day. They have no choice but to fulfill it. So that can be a burden. Yeah. But they're not trying to put restrictions on those people. Lawmakers are trying to just restrict everybody from getting records on themselves. Yeah. It's disgusting.
Yeah, I hear this all the time, that it's a burden, and it's true. You know, it does take work to go through these records. They have to sometimes block out names and things like that. But there are things in the law called exemptions where they don't have to provide records, and some of those people who may be abusive of the public record system, that's a fair issue, just like you said, and maybe there's laws that are necessary to try to go after those people. But for the rest of us, these are our records, and we want them. Yeah.
So, and I know we need to wrap, but the problem is, right, there's no veto. Like the governor just said, there's no.
So what can he do? What would you like to see?
Well, I think the best the governor can do at this point is make a public statement that he does not support this, and then we'll see what media organizations like King 5, which is part of this lawsuit, do to follow. I mean, we could, you know, file a lawsuit. I hate to throw this whole thing into court, but this is a real blow to what we do when we're covering the Washington State Legislature.
Democracy. It's democracy. If you don't want people to know what you're doing, don't run for office. You know, that's just one way of looking at it.
Chris, thank you for your perspective. We appreciate it.
You bet, guys. Sure.